The 80s were filled with a bunch of great sci-fi films as well as great Arnie films. Among them was Predator, a movie which was a mixture of a couple of different genres. It starts out as an action movie, then becomes a sci-fi slasher, with all of these macho dudes getting destroyed by an enemy that they can't see, which I've always thought was a metaphor for the Vietnam War. These bodybuilders basically representing the US and their power, thinking that this is just going to be a walk in the park by just steamrolling their way through a jungle. It's not till Arnie adapts to the environment and the hunting style of the predator, changing the dynamic and the hunter becomes the hunted, that he is able to kill it. This is one of my favourite movies, but like all good things, they have to come to an end, and in the case of the Predator series, this came with sequels, which are all pretty bad, especially the last two. That is with the exception of Predator 2, which came out in 1990, and at the time, with the reception it received, you'd think that maybe the series shouldn't have been a series in the first place. Though it isn't as bad in comparison to later installments, in fact the movie is actually underrated. After going back and watching the movie, it's actually pretty fun, with some good action scenes and people getting skinned and hung up like meat in a freezer, which is where they fight the Predator at one point in the movie. With the police work and Danny Glover, the movie ends up being Lethal Weapon meets the Predator. It's also the only movie, except for the first, that actually ended on a high note. Finally, we get to see inside the Predator ship, their weaponry and how their culture works and how much they value the hunt. So in a way, the other Predator movies borrow more from this film than the first. Then there's Predators, which may have sounded good on paper but ended up being a shit show. It's so unmemorable, it's hard to criticize. It's in the jungle on a different planet with different aliens, as well as predators and Lawrence Fishburne. But there's no suspense, bad acting, Adrian Brody sucks in this movie. The whole movie was made so that they could finally show us what that fight between Billy and the Predator might have looked like in the first film, since he dies off screen. They even used the same music building up the fight, which is probably the only good scene in this movie. Plus, as someone else pointed out, the shotgun sounds like a pinball machine. Which is probably the best thing about the movie. Now, I saw The Predator somewhat recently, and basically everything about it sucks. It's back on that place called Earth, where they're fighting to survive against multiple predators and a weird hybrid predator, which they've tried in almost all of these sequels, and it has never worked. They even brought the Predator dogs back, except they somehow look worse, and they serve no real purpose. I just don't see the point of why they did this. And then I think they befriend one of them, which is even dumber. And then there's some dumb shit, the Predator mixing its DNA with humans. And then there's the whole way to beat the Predators, which is to bring people with autism and soldiers with PTSD together. The first film is about a couple of soldiers fighting in the jungle against an alien. It's pretty basic. We don't need these weird elaborate plot points which sound dumber than most M. Night Shyamalan movies. I've also maintained that even in the worst Predator movies, the Predator, not the weird hybrid-looking ones, but the actual Predators look really good. That was until this movie. For some reason, they just look weird, and the last Predator movie might actually be better than the last Alien movie, which isn't really saying much, and so we can't forget the crossover Alien vs. Predator movies, the first of which doesn't suck as much as people say it does. The pyramid in Antarctica that works like a Rubik's Cube was pretty fucking stupid. What do you guys think? Pyramids in Antarctica dumber than predators thinking that autistic kids are the next evolution for humanity? Though it did make for a pretty good setting, as it put everyone in an isolated and constantly changing rooms. Other than that, there isn't any elaborate shit going on, well, except for the hybrid predators. It's just people surviving as predators fight some xenomorphs. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just okay. But it is a concept that I think could work, it's just that no one has ever tried, has actually pulled it off. The first Alien vs. Predator is still probably the best movie in either series that has come out in this century, which shows just how much these franchises have fallen. Which is funny because Alien vs. Predator Requiem is possibly the worst installment in either series, though I've never seen Alien 4 because it's supposed to be so awful. All I remember from Requiem is that a kid finds a facehugger in the woods, and then some town gets taken over, and some pregnant women get killed in a maternity ward after being impregnated by an alien, so rip to all of those babies. It's a pretty awful movie that I don't want to rewatch, so I won't. So now that we're caught up with the series, this brings us to the upcoming Predator movie, Prey. The movie has been confirmed to be R-rated, which is good because there was talk about the movie possibly being PG-13. The closer this movie gets to being horror, the better. The movie is based 300 years ago and is about a Comanche woman who tries to protect her tribe from a predator. Apparently, there is little to no dialogue, so the action and the woman's reactions are going to tell the story, which I think is a better way to do it at this point, which will help build the tension and also sounds like they're going to bring it back to its roots. The Predator itself is going to look very different for a Predator. It's going to look slimmer and have less armor. Maybe it's a female Predator. That's not been confirmed, but it's possible, and that may have its own dynamic, showing maybe some similarities between it and the protagonist. Maybe they both have to prove themselves to their tribe. I want to know if female Predators are just as ugly as the males. I think we all want to know that. Its weaponry is going to be slightly less advanced as it's based 300 years ago, so maybe we're going to get some sense of how its weaponry has evolved to be the way that it is in the earlier films. I like the concept of this movie, the Predator versus the Native Americans. I've noticed, though, a simple way to build on an already established idea that may be overdone is to make it a period piece, which I think normally works, like the Korean show Kingdom, which takes the zombie premise and puts it in the context of 16th century Korea. Though in a series like Predator, it appears that maybe they've run out of ideas, so whether they can actually pull this off is another question. But I do think the movie does look like it could be decent, but it's hard to have any kind of hope for a series that has failed so many times before. This is the last chance for the series. Actually, whether this is good or not, this should probably be the last installment for the series, at least in the form of live action. I would also like to address some weird takes on the Prey trailer and modern movies in general. These weirdos think it's woke and therefore bad if these properties have a black person in them, as if they shouldn't be, and that movies are bad if they have progressive social messages in them, which is stupid, as if progressive social messages don't exist in most art since like forever. Star Wars, for example, is getting shitted on for being left-wing trash or some shit, as if it hasn't been progressive since the start. For example, the obvious allusions to the Nazis with stormtroopers being the bad guys, but what these movies also were critiquing was the United States' invasion of Vietnam, comparing the Empire to the US. So I've already seen people trying to do this with the main character, who is a woman. I doubt they're going to make a woman overpower the Predator just because she's a woman. Okay, incels, calm down. It looks like she's going to use weapons at her disposal and probably traps to beat it like Arnie did in the original. If you want to blame something for these movies sucking, then blame consumerism and or capitalism, which is what consumerism is a product of. The problem is billion-dollar companies making billions by remaking, rebooting, and making more sequels, driving the series into the dirt, till you never want to watch anything even vaguely associated with these franchises. With that being said, I do think that you have to watch something before you can really judge it. So anyway, that's what I think of this movie and this series. It should have ended a long time ago, but this may be its second win. Unfortunately, it might be too late for anyone to really care. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want more videos,
stick around.